Now for this week's test drive, it was pretty plain and simple. It's going to be the holidays. We're going to need enough room for 5 individuals, and well, it's going to encompass Christmas, which pretty much means it's going to be our luggage, our people, and well, some presents thrown in. So the vehicle's going to have to deliver. Hey, welcome to this edition of Road Warrior. I'm your host, Grant Robertson. Now today is actually Christmas, so I wanted to give you a special treat. And when it's all said and done, this vehicle's probably going to tally more than 1,600 miles. So we had to make sure it could deliver us up north and back south. So specifically in front of you, this is the all-new 2020 Cadillac XT6, coming in just a little bit bigger than the XT4 and naturally smaller than the Escalade. And for this week-long test drive up north to Buffalo, New York, with, well, 2 grown adults in the front and 3 teenagers in the back, it all came down to the final equation. Could it handle all of us, plus our luggage, plus the presents for Christmas? And what we found is it came in pretty decent, falling just short with that second part, pretty much the Christmas presents. So what we needed was just a little extra cargo room on top of the roof. Now don't let the cargo contraption on top confuse you, because the XT6 definitely delivers when it comes to its overall size. Now let's look at the numbers. Pretty much around about 198 inches overall, 112 inches when it comes to wheelbase. Now those are decent numbers, really creeping it up almost to the fuller size segment, really in the upper mid-size when you look at the other offerings on the road. Now when you look at the width, not too bad, around about 77 inches. Height between 68 and 70 inches depending on the roof rack system. Now also don't be confused, because what you're seeing here is an aftermarket rails, because well, this test drive did not come with the crossbars, so I needed to kind of do a retrofit with this nice cargo compartment, pretty much barring these so we could harness the power of what the roof rack systems can deliver. Now the XT6 is more of a crossover, not an SUV, and you'll note that in one area, the ground clearance, still not too bad, around about 6.6 inches. Some SUVs tend to be a little bit more, around about 8 inches. Now with the XT6 compared to maybe like an Escalade, what you're seeing here is more of a wagon-esque-like design from the profile versus the Escalade, which is more truckish, larger, and of course wider along the haunches. What we see here is a more sleek, tighter design with only a little bit of chiseling right through the midline and barely a hint of flare down here at the bottom. Now at the 4 corners, specifically what we see here are 235/55s wrapping a 20-inch wheel. Now the best part about this XT6 truly is its crossover-like mentality, keeping the overall width nice and tight, making it feel a lot less bulky on the open road. Now again, this was 800 miles roughly in one direction up north, pretty much meaning you could have easily driver fatigue, putting about 11 hours on the open road. But what I found with the drivability and the car-like demeanor of this vehicle, it made that so much easier. Don't forget, 3 teenagers in the back, so naturally, are we there yet, is the proverbial song that easily drowns out the radio. Now let's talk about some smart systems on this vehicle. First off is the surround view. Cameras mounted on the side, at the back, and at the front. And I'll talk about one other camera that helps the driver even more. One other thing is smart key systems. Naturally, keeping this key in your pocket has become the new trend to be expected here on the XT6. And where it starts is the ingress. Now what I like here on this vehicle is it's at every access point, pretty much meaning you go up to the driver's door or the back door here, press this button, unlocks with ease. And this really came into play when I watched a rainy day and saw an individual that had a vehicle that didn't have this, forgot all about it, it's raining, can't get in here, had to do the 2-step dance, go here, unlock, then come here. This vehicle makes it so much easier. Lock it right up, walk away. Now, one thing I wish on a premium vehicle like this that demands around about $70,000 as seen, I prefer these mirrors to tuck in, obviously to minimize scrapes and dings, but it also gives you a nice visual that this car is locked. Last area of lockability, I guess you could say, is right here, the fill-up area. And unfortunately, this is an Achilles heel for a lot of premium vehicles. This is unlocked all the time. Not saying that someone might want to siphon your gas, but it is always one area of theft to think about. And also one other thing is it is a capless system. I always talk about grille warfare, and for the XT6, it all starts with this nice open-faced grille, riveted little accents with chrome and dual tones with the black and darkened accent on the flatter surface, chrome wrapping all the way around. Now body color's pretty much taken all the other adornments and a little bit of darkened accents here on the side. Now as for airflow, that's obviously right through the middle and in this lower fascia. One thing to note, this looks like some venting here on the side to accept airflow. It's just for looks. These are a solid surface, not really accepting any air at all. Now sensors are going to be found up here at the front parking as well as there in the back, really like a radar there for the driver, diving into those touchy points almost to pinpoint precision. Now the grille warfare is only one part of the overall design up here. The headlight assemblies really stepping up the overall design, specifically with its menacing approach, barely any vertical height to the overall lens, really stretching across the outer portions of the front end. Now there's another approach to the headlights up here as well, is the daytime running lights in the form of this vertical accent going right here. Even better, as you turn the vehicle or turn the blinker on, there's a little kind of flashlight that beams out to the side, giving you a visual and clear shot, really lighting up the path as you turn left or right. Now referred to this as the luxury version of the XT6, and with that came some chrome accents, and dare I say the grille warfare had a hint of chrome, but it wasn't emblazoned that much. Really just nice delicate touches of chrome here and there, because too much of it, again, I refer to it as a Mr. T starter kit. So swinging around to the back, I did expect some chrome, but thankfully it is subdued back here as well. Pretty much body color all the way around, just a hint of accent across here, even down there at the lower fascia, but no rubber cladding, pretty much everything nice and premium. What I also like is this extension right here. Instead of it just dropping off, what they did is hide some of the operation. Really the windshield wiper tucked up in here. Also another camera. Now I talked about the backup camera, which is found here, but what you're gonna find is a camera mounted right there. Now that's gonna couple with the rear view mirror there for the driver. They can flip a switch, gonna give you a nice HD viewpoint from behind. I ended up using that pretty much the entire time, because as you add people and cargo, naturally the traditional mirror will fall short with all the blind spots. Even better, with the rear windshield wiper and the cleaner, that will be cleaned off when there's gunk getting on it. It sprays right there on the camera, just the same to clean things off. Now let's see how this delivered when it came to cargo space. For this week's test drive, it really wasn't, well, about the comfort, because we knew the XT6 delivered that. It was really about what space was left when people climbed inside, because after all, we had 2 in the front, 2 in the second row, and 1 here on the split rear bench seat. So, well, what's left? Now, before we dive in, let's talk about the operation back here. Now, there's 3 options to make life easier. First off, the good old button here, the button on your key fob, or you could go hands-free. Just simply come around about this area, swing your lead back and forth, and this hatch rises to the occasion. Now, naturally, this is powered, to be expected. Now, what I also liked is how this gets up out of the way. Now, I'm 6'2" tall and no head banging affair whatsoever. Even better, as you get in, gets a little bit more cathedral-like, give you a little bit more breathing room. Now, when you dive in here, what you're gonna see is around about 12.6 cubic feet of space. As you lay this third row down, that's going to be around about 43 cubic feet of space. As you lay all the seats down, going to fall just under 80 cubic feet. And naturally, that was the equation for this week. Specifically what I had here, again, the second row is full, and either side of this was going to need an individual. So what we had to do is leave the rest for cargo. What's helpful is everything is powered. Just simply press the corresponding button here, tumbles that seat down, and this was the amount of space we had left. Pretty much some area back here and right through here. And what we found was this was just good enough for the Christmas gift, meaning we needed the extra space on top. Now let's talk about this roof system real quick. Now naturally the XT6 does have these side rails. You obviously can equip them with the cross rails. This particular model just didn't have them with it. So we had to go with more of a universal system like you see here. Now if we had had the cross rails, this would have actually set back here. The rails go about this area, so it would have set back on the vehicle just a little bit. But thankfully these universal ones work with ease. Now the way they work is you simply unlock them, you go to put them in place, and they can of course adjust across this rail. Now once you find the right spot, you tighten it just a hair to get this cinch point, and obviously locks right underneath the roof just a little bit, and really makes life so much better. What's even better is once they're in place, it's nice and solid, and this system really allows you to get a little bit more cargo on this vehicle when sometimes it might fall just short, again because of the amount of people we had plus the amount of cargo we needed. Now with the overall numbers on the XT6 being just under 200 inches, what I expected was decent legroom numbers, and that's exactly what I found. Now specifically in the front, it's going to be around about 41 inches. In the second row, about 39. Now, that's about tit for tat. Really anyone finding comfort in these two rows. Now to be expected there at the back, just under 30 inches. But for my smallest teenager, well, they found decent comfort, because after all, this second row can slide forward just a hair, because that's probably going to be a little bit too much legroom even for most individuals. So they can be kind and slide these forward. Now for operation, what I do like is to make ingress easier. You can naturally go through the middle, but you can simply also pull the handle here on the shoulder, just a nice simple tug, and it's going to give you decent access to the back seat. Now if you do need to transform this into cargo, again, we only did that on the back right there. You can put this in its furthest position, then simply pull the handle here on the outer side, and that's going to tumble it forward. Now what you're going to find with the third row laid flat and this, a pretty decent flat area. Now with the captain chairs like you see it here, naturally there's going to be a void, but pretty much can handle cargo in a pinch when you need it to. Now the first thing you really notice in the second rows is the captain's chairs really enveloping the individuals. Even better is the individualized attention with the inner armrest, really allowing people to find their overall comfort. Naturally the outer doors giving that extra armrest as well. Now what I also like is tri-zone system, and this is definitely going to have it, and it all starts right here. Now the driver can control this as well, and I've pretty much kept this off when no one was back here, but they can take control, set the temperature how they want right down to the degree point. The outer seats here as well can be heated with the press of a button, and they can control the vents pretty much with directional or down to the feet. Now headed up north, one thing we expected was the grime from the road, specifically all the salting and the grime that goes with it when you get into the vehicle. And one thing that took a beating were the carpet mats. Now what we did is we bought some cheap ones really to help protect it. And one thing I prefer here on the XT6 is to go with a different option when it comes to the matting, because these truly got all the grime built into the carpets. Took a little extra effort to get them clean. So what I prefer to do is put something that covers these up for the long-term care of this vehicle. With the backseat drivers being teenagers, one thing they needed was connectivity, and they found that in the form of USBs. One right there at the back of the center console, and one for each side for the third row occupants. Mentioned earlier about the backup camera and that extra camera that couples nicely with the rearview mirror. Now this is a traditional mirror here, but what I like is when you flip this here, it gives you that nice HD video, pretty much give you a nice bird's eye view. Now again, when this gets kind of salty and grimy like we found during our week-long test drive, just simply hit the rear window wash and it cleans this lens right off. Front and center on the dash going to be a huge touchscreen system, really houses everything under one nice glass and barely an arm stretch away. Now you do have a nice toggle system down below, pretty much found in a lot of premium vehicles, allows you to dial specifically to what you're looking for, as well as some other shortcuts. You know, what I like is the back button when you get lost, but naturally if you're going to go to the mapping system, just press that and it quickly illuminates there on the screen, and obviously hit the other shortcuts goes to the other ones. Now you do have those down here as well. Now one thing I did like is the climate view, because it really told you a lot of what's going on, because I'll show you the climate controls in just a second. It is somewhat simple, but the best thing I liked was going over here to the rear controls, because you can really handle this if you have younger individuals in the back, or like in my case you had teenagers, so they could do it themselves and really turn it off when there's no one back there. Now there's some other functions around the infotainment system. It took a little bit of getting used to of their location, one of them being lane assist, which is right over here. When you activate that, that's a little tug on the steering wheel, helps you keep in your lane, really helps with long drives and minimizes really driver fatigue. Now over here on the left side, what you're going to find is that auto stop, auto start feature. Sometimes that's not going to be found on vehicles. A lot of vehicles really getting rid of that, so pretty much you have no control. What I like here on the XT6 is they leave that so you can turn that feature off, and that's that feature that's going to turn off the vehicle when you get to stoplights and stop signs and so on, and start it back up, help with fuel economy. Now you also have the parking sensor up here. That's obviously going to be that alert when you get into tight spots. One other feature I like is this right here, which is the parking assist feature. Now pretty much you can tell by the diagram how you're going to be parking. It's going to look for cars and going to help you out. Obviously you can go with more of a perpendicular. That's just something that I think is a little over the top. I don't use that much, but is there should a driver feel this is a little bit more comfort zone of getting into those tight spots. Now, I mentioned earlier how the infotainment system really houses the climate controls, and that's helpful because right through here, maybe it's a little too simple and you really got to interact with the screen up above to make sense of it. Now, first off, it's going to be the heated and cooled seats. And what I like is on these cool days, the heated seats automatically sense the driver was in place or even the passenger and turn that on. And you could change the setting as you saw fit. Obviously, you got dual zones up front and your fan speed right through here. But the one Achilles heel was mode select. Now, you do have a couple of selections, but really what I kept looking for is vent selection. And obviously, when you start changing the speed, you'll see it come up here on the screen. And if you quickly interact with it, that will bring it up full throttle. And then what you have is the various mode selects, which aren't found as shortcuts down below. Now, one other big preference, what I prefer sometimes is to have maybe the defrost, the front vent, and the down vent, but that's just not the option here. And this is traditional, so don't get me wrong, a lot of cars do it this way, but what I'd like is actually to have all three vents as an option: the defrost, the front vents, and the floor. Just not the case in this particular setup. Now, I mentioned earlier the toggle switch here that goes with the infotainment system, but you also do have a volume controlled knob. Now, you do have the automatic gear shifter here as well. It's more of a toggle shifter. Just simply press the button here on the side, push up for reverse, pull down for drive, and then pull down again for manual. And even better is there are paddle shifters if you want to do kind of a clutchless like feel. Another thing you're going to notice up front is a nice covering to make everything nice and sleek right through here. Just simply pull that back. That's going to reveal two cup holders even better. This is spring loaded, so it covers up with ease. Now, one thing that could go unnoticed is, well, the wireless charging system. I looked all over for it, pretty much looking in here, the console, just couldn't find it. Once I lifted this up, I did reveal this kind of literature right here. It pretty much showed a phone and some type of chargeability. So what I realized is, well, I just simply take the phone right here, slide it into this crevice, and it powers right up with ease. As for the center console, nice and elevated and padded, giving nice elbow support for both occupants. Once you lift it up, you're going to reveal a deep storage area, and you can really see where that phone slides in. Once you put it in here, you can see how it goes right through there. Do have connectivity. I talked about the USBs earlier. Do have one in here as well as a USB-C. For the gauge clutch, you're going to find a standard analog tach and speedometer, but a huge digital readout in the middle gives you tons of information. Now, this particular XT6 was all-wheel drive, but you can get just a front-wheel drive version, and you can simply select the all-wheel drive modes by going over to the center area between the front occupants and pressing it and select what you prefer. Now, we pretty much kept it in the good old tour mode, trying to get the best fuel economy, but you can obviously select which one you prefer. Using the toggle switch on the steering wheel, you can go through all the various settings, but one thing I did like was the digital readout for speed. Now, obviously in this mode, you have it twice, as well as the heads-up display there on the glass as well, but you can simply go through tons of different options, really giving you specific information, really all housed right here in the gauge cluster where you need it. On the steering wheel, you're going to have cruise control options here on the left side and this automatic heated steering wheel. Now, it's great again with it being cold outside. The vehicle pretty much always had this on, as well as the heated seats. After a little while, this of course is warm enough, and simply just turn that right off. Now, over here on the right side, do have all the controls for your entertainment, specifically even right down to the volume and changing some other settings on the gauge cluster like I mentioned earlier here. Now, I mentioned at the back there was a nice nook and cranny to put some extra gear. We also found those on the doors, but one thing we noticed is it was a little bit difficult to put sometimes the average beverage down here. This is really going to be better for bottles and such, really to squeeze down. Some vehicles even can allow cups like you can get through the fast food, just not the case here. But one thing we did like was this hidden area found under the center place, basically allowing us to put some extra gear, stuff it down there, just one extra compartment. Now it does for this additional reward and a test drive behind the wheel of the all-new 2020 Cadillac XT6, a vehicle that when it's all said and done is going to tally more than 1,600 miles in a week and delivered a family of 5 and their gear and their presents with ease. Now, don't get me wrong, we need a little bit of extra space up top, but some vehicles just can't do it all because, well, we demand too much. But thankfully, they can adapt, and that's the point of this whole roofing system is, well, it can give you more space when you need it. Now, as always, thank you for watching this edition of Road Warrior. Keep both hands on the wheel and eyes straight ahead.